The knocking started before the sun had fully risen, harsh and frantic, echoing against the thick wooden door. Mara pounded with small, raw fists, nails cracking against the splintered wood. Her breath came in ragged bursts, lips blue from cold. Dust swirled around her boots, the wind tugging at her thin linen dress, twisting it against her knees. She slammed harder. "Please," she cried, voice breaking, "please." A shadow moved behind the door. The door creaked slightly, then stopped. Mara's eyes widened, the small hope in her chest flaring. A tall figure stepped into the light, wide brim of a dusty hat casting half his face in shadow. The rancher, silent, still, motionless, like a tree rooted in the wooden floor. His coat hung stiff over his shoulders. "Who's there?" His voice was low, blunt, measured. I need food," she said. "Bread. Anything." Her hands shook. He didn't answer. His eyes were dark, unreadable. Mara swallowed, fear and hunger twisting together. She banged again. "Please." A faint creak, the door opening just an inch. She peered in. His gaze met hers, steady, like he could see through the thin, shivering body. "Step inside," he said finally, voice like gravel. Hesitation stiffened her knees. She glanced over her shoulder at the snow-covered porch, the pale light cutting through dust in the air. I can," she whispered, stepping forward. The door groaned under her small weight as she passed. The warmth hit first, a faint, dry heat that smelled of wood smoke and earth. She shivered, rubbing her arms, staring at him. He didn't move. Didn't smile. Didn't guide her further. She placed the toe of her boot carefully, afraid to break the invisible line between them. The wooden floor creaked under her weight. He stepped back, letting her alone with the small table in the center of the room. A loaf of bread sat there, coarse, rough. She blinked. "Bread?" He didn't answer, only watched. Dust motes drifted in golden slivers of sunrise, caught in the gap of the door behind her. She hunched over, grasping the bread. Crumbs fell to the floor. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't make noise," he said, voice sharp. Her hands shook as she tore at it. Every bite burned with cold, hunger, desperation. She swallowed quickly, coughing. "Water," she gasped. He slid a tin cup across the table without touching her. She drank, choked, spluttered. "Slow down," he said, voice blunt. She nodded, trembling. "Sorry," she whispered. "Don't be sorry." "Be quiet," he said. Silence fell, heavy, thick, broken only by her chewing. The fire in the corner flickered, casting long shadows. Dust lingered in the light, suspended, moving in slow arcs. Outside, silhouettes of watchers lingered, blurred and distant, peeking through cracks in doorways. Mara's eyes flicked to the far corner, to a door she had seen before, dark, imposing. Her curiosity pricked at her like needles. "What's behind that door?" she asked, voice small. The rancher's hand tightened at his side. "That stays shut," he said, tone low, final. She swallowed. "Why?" His jaw tightened. He didn't answer. "Someone there," she pressed. Silence. "I wasn't, you were," he cut her off. The air felt heavier. Dust swirled slowly, moving through the golden light like trapped motes of memory. Mara's knees wobbled slightly. Her small frame hunched. She wanted to run, but had nowhere to go. She tore another bite of bread, trying to ignore the locked door. He watched her like a hawk, eyes dark, unreadable. The shadow seemed to move toward the corners, toward the door, stretching long across the floor. Her stomach ached, her body trembling, exhaustion bleeding through her hunger. "Don't look at it," he said finally. Her eyes darted toward him. "I wasn't, you were," he repeated. Her small fingers dug into the edges of the table, white-knuckled, shaking. Outside, a figure shifted in a doorway. Mara flinched. The rancher's shadow stretched long across the floor, moving toward the dark door like a warning. The warmth of the room clashed with the cold fear pressing on her chest. I just want to rest, she whispered. He didn't answer. He just stood there, unmoving, watching, silent. Dust motes floated, caught in the slanted sunlight cutting across the floorboards. Mara hunched lower, tears forming, mixing with grime on her cheeks. I won't steal, she said quickly, voice trembling. You already are, he said, low, almost a growl. She flinched, but didn't move. She lowered her gaze, hands trembling, gripping the bread. He stepped back slightly, boots scraping the floor softly. The sound echoed in the empty space. She studied him, small, hungry, wary. You're silent, she said finally. He didn't answer, only tilted his head slightly. Mara bit her lip, body tense, listening to the quiet. The snow outside pressed against the walls, cold and white, like it wanted in. I don't have anywhere else to go, she whispered. He didn't move closer. Didn't offer warmth. He just watched. A faint flicker of movement at the corner of his eye. Outside, the door shook lightly under the wind. Mara flinched. I'm not, you are, he said, blunt, unwavering. Her fingers tightened around the bread. Her small body trembled, knees weak. He let out a long breath, almost imperceptible. Dust swirled in the light, like frozen sparks of time. He tilted his head, finally, and said, then stay. For now. But don't move, don't speak unless spoken to. Mara exhaled shakily, relief and fear mingling. Her stomach twisted, but she nodded. Yes, she whispered. The fire flickered, shadows dancing across the walls. The locked door in the corner seemed to pulse in the dim light, heavy, dark. Mara hunched lower, gripping the bread, eating slowly. The rancher watched, silent, still, shadow looming. Outside, faint eyes remained in doorways, silent witnesses to the strange truce forming in the early morning light. Dust hung in the air like trapped memory, moving through shafts of gold. Mara's small frame trembled against the weight of hunger, cold, and fear, the room pressing close around her. The rancher's hands were stiff at his sides, jaw tight, eyes dark. The locked door stayed shut. The silence pressed on, long, heavy, unbroken, almost alive. She ate, small bites, careful, trembling. He watched, still, unyielding, silent. Shadows stretched, dust floated, the morning light burned gold and thin across her small form. The wind rattled the outer door again. Mara flinched. He didn't move. She swallowed, tears streaked on dirt-stained cheeks. Thank you, she whispered again. He didn't answer. He only watched. Dust danced between them, suspended, a visible weight in the golden light. The moment stretched, heavy, tense, fragile. She finished the bread, small and trembling, and leaned against the table. He didn't move closer. Didn't soften. Didn't speak. Outside, the snow pressed against the walls. Inside, shadows stretched long, the fire flickered, dust motes hung, and the locked door remained, heavy, silent. Mara shivered, exhausted, still, alive. He stepped back, silent, letting her sit. The truce held, delicate, brittle, unbroken. She exhaled, small, trembling, clutching herself. Dust swirled in the early golden light. He didn't move. He didn't speak. The locked door loomed, shadowed. She ate. She waited. She survived. The door shut behind her with a low thud, the sound echoing faintly in the quiet room. Mara's shoulders hunched, arms crossed over her chest as she stared at the table. The rancher, Eli, remained standing near the fire, hands clasped loosely at his sides, eyes dark, unreadable. Sit, he said, voice low, clipped. She hesitated, boots scuffing the floor. Dust floated lazily in the warm shafts of light cutting through cracks in the wooden walls. Her stomach growled, small and insistent. She sat anyway, knees pressed together, fingers tight in her lap. He didn't move closer, didn't offer comfort, only watched. Outside, faint figures lingered at doorways, silent, observing. Mara glanced toward the window, frost clinging to the edges, but the watcher's eyes held her attention. You feed me, she asked, voice small, tentative. I said sit, he repeated, tone flat, final. She swallowed hard, nodding. The wooden chair groaned beneath her, dust rising in tiny clouds with each subtle shift. Her hands twisted in her lap, cold and shaking. The fire flickered, casting long shadows that stretched toward the far corner of the room. The locked door remained, dark, looming, a silent observer. Mara's gaze drifted there despite herself. Eli moved to the cupboard, slow, deliberate. He pulled out a small tin, cracked and dented, and set it on the table with a muted clang. Bread, coarse and cold, sat inside. "Eat," he said, voice low. She hesitated, staring at it. "It's cold." He didn't respond. She tore off a piece anyway, fingers shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't answer. Dust motes hovered in the sunlight, trapped, frozen, moving with the faint currents of air. The room felt smaller with each passing second, heavier, saturated with the weight of quiet observation. Her stomach ached, hunger pressing through the thin linen of her dress. She tore another piece of bread, chewing quickly. "Water," she said. He slid a cup across the table. Tin clattered softly against wood. She drank, choked, swallowed hard. "Slow," he said. She nodded, trembling, eyes wide, trying not to meet his. The table was small, rough, scarred by years of use. Mara placed the bread down, leaning slightly forward, elbows on the wood. "You live here?" she asked. Silence. She lifted her eyes. "Answer." He exhaled, a low sound, gravelly. "Yes." She swallowed. "Alone?" He didn't answer. She pressed again. "No one else?" "No one worth mentioning," he muttered. She flinched. "Meaning?" He didn't move closer. "You'll see," he said finally. Dust swirled in the light, settling slowly on her hair, on her sleeves, the tips of her fingers. Outside, figures shifted quietly in the snow, blurred silhouettes, silent witnesses. Her stomach growled again. She tore at the bread, chewing fast, trying not to look at the dark door in the corner. Eli's eyes followed her, sharp, unflinching. Shadows stretched long across the floorboards, mixing with dust, light, and fire, creating shapes that felt alive. Where is everyone?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. His jaw tightened. "Dead," he said. The single word hit like a fist. Mara's eyes widened. She pressed her hands to her mouth, trembling. "Dead?" "Yes." "How?" "Fire." She flinched, body shrinking toward the chair. Dust hung in the air, thick, heavy, suspended in the golden light of morning. Her fingers dug into her lap. I lost mine too," she whispered, voice cracking. Eli didn't respond immediately. The fire flickered, shadows moving across his broad shoulders. He shifted slightly, boots scraping the floor. The air felt cold despite the faint warmth from the fire. Outside, snow pressed against the walls, faint scratches of wind. Mara swallowed. Her small frame trembled, hunger and grief mingling. She looked down at the bread, crumbs scattered, tiny white marks against the dark wood. "Did you," she began, voice soft, faltering, "did you stop it?" Eli's eyes flicked briefly to the locked door. His hands clenched at his sides. "I tried," he said, low, almost a growl. You didn't?" Her small body shook, disbelief etched on her face. He didn't answer. She swallowed hard, trying to control the tremble in her voice. Should I go?" "No," he said sharply. Her stomach twisted. Relief, fear, confusion. "Then stay," he muttered, voice softer now. She nodded. Dust motes drifted lazily, suspended in the golden light. She tore at the bread again, small bites, trembling hands. He watched, still, silent. Outside, the shadows of watchers remained, blurred and distant, unmoving. The silence stretched. Mara glanced at the dark door again, curiosity pricking at her nerves. "Why locked?" she asked softly. His jaw tightened. "It stays that way," he said, flat, final. "Why?" Because some things should remain closed. She bit her lip, small tremor running through her body. I want to know. He didn't answer. The shadow seemed to grow longer, stretching toward the corner of the room where the door stood. Dust hung in the sunlight, each particle visible, suspended, slow. Mara's fingers dug into the edge of the table. She swallowed. Someone there? No, he said. Silence followed, thick, almost suffocating. She hunched lower, small and fragile. Her stomach ached. Hunger. Cold. Fear. She swallowed another piece of bread. Food, more, she asked hesitantly. He shook his head, slow, deliberate. She pressed again. Water? He slid the cup closer. Drink slowly, he said. She nodded, gulping, trembling. Her small frame shivered, trying to stay upright. Dust floated in the warm sunlight, cutting through the cracks. Shadows stretched across the walls, across her small hands gripping the tin cup. Outside, faint figures remained at doorways, silent, watching. The room felt alive, thick with memory, shadows, light. Every movement mattered. Every sound carried weight. She exhaled softly. I could stay, she asked, voice small, fragile. He tilted his head. For now, he said finally. His voice was low, heavy, but not unkind. She nodded, relief flooding her small body. Dust motes drifted lazily, moving in the warm, golden light. Shadows stretched long. The locked door remained dark, a silent sentinel in the corner. The fire flickered, warming the room, adding its own movement to the heavy silence. Mara hunched forward slightly, hands pressed against her knees, small and trembling. Eli watched her, unmoving, hands at his sides, jaw tight, eyes dark. Outside, watchers remained, shadowed, blurred, silent. The room was small, heavy, tense. Warm light fell across the wooden floor. Dust floated slowly. Mara swallowed, clutching herself. The truce held, delicate, fragile, unbroken. She ate slowly, taking small bites, eyes flicking to the locked door again. Eli's eyes never left her. Dust drifted lazily in the shafts of sunlight. The fire flickered, casting long shadows across the worn floorboards. Her stomach ached, cold and empty. She trembled. She hunched lower, small and fragile, listening to the quiet. Outside, snow pressed against the walls. Figures lingered at doorways, silent observers. The room held them both, tense, small, fragile. Bread crumbs dotted the floor. The air felt thick, alive. Dust motes floated, caught in the light, suspended mid-air. She exhaled, tiny and trembling. He exhaled, low, measured. They existed together, small, fragile, silent. The door stayed shut. She ate. She survived. She waited. Dust drifted. Shadows stretched. Mara's eyes never left the locked door. The wood was dark, scarred, and old, the iron lock thick and cold. She pressed her small hands against it, fingertips trembling. "What's behind it?" she whispered. Dust swirled in the thin shaft of sunlight cutting through the cracks. Eli's shadow stretched across the floor toward the door, tall and stiff. "Nothing for you," he said, voice low, firm. She flinched. "Nothing?" His jaw tightened. "Don't touch it." She pulled back, fingers curling in her lap. The room felt smaller, heavier. The fire flickered, casting long shadows that crawled across the floorboards. Dust motes floated, caught in the light, suspended mid-motion. Outside, snow pressed against the walls. Figures lingered in doorways, blurred, silent, watching. Mara hunched slightly, shivering from cold and fear. She wanted to ask more but didn't. The word nothing weighed heavily, sharp as ice. She leaned forward slightly. I heard noises." Her voice was small, trembling. "Noises?" He stepped closer, boots scraping the floor softly. "Yes," she whispered, eyes wide. At night, sometimes. Eli's eyes narrowed. You hear things in old houses, he said flatly. This is old. Full of memory. Ghosts you can't fight. She swallowed hard. Not ghosts. People. Her voice cracked. Eli's jaw tightened further. The firelight flickered, throwing shadows that seemed to move toward the corner where the door stood. Dust motes hovered in the golden sunlight like tiny, trapped stars. Outside, the faint silhouettes of watchers remained in doorways, quiet, unmoving. Mara's stomach twisted. Hunger and fear coiled together. She pressed her hands to her knees, trembling. People? Eli asked, voice low, cautious. He didn't move closer, but the shadow of his body stretched long, pressing toward the locked door. Yes, she said, small, voice trembling. I think someone's locked in there. His eyes flicked to the door, dark, unreadable. He didn't speak immediately. Dust floated in lazy arcs around them, caught in the golden light of early morning. The fire flickered again, shadows crawling across the floorboards, the table, Mara's small, trembling hands. Outside, the wind pressed against the outer walls, snow brushing the windows. Mara's thin dress shivered against her skin. Can I see, she whispered. His hand moved slightly, a warning. No, he said flatly. Not now. She swallowed, trembling, hands tightening in her lap. Why not? She pressed. Because some doors are not for opening, he said, voice blunt, final. Her eyes widened. Why? He exhaled slowly, jaw tight. You're not ready. Dust hung thick in the shafts of light. The fire flickered, shadows dancing across the walls and floor. She swallowed, small and fragile, leaning slightly against the table. I'm not ready, for what? The truth, he said quietly. The world doesn't wait for the ready. She shivered. The room felt alive, heavy, thick. Dust floated in slow, visible arcs. Her fingers dug into the edges of the table. Outside, figures lingered in the snow, blurred and silent, watching. The locked door dominated the corner, dark, foreboding, a silent sentinel. Mara's stomach growled, small and insistent. She tore at the bread in her lap. I hear them at night, she said again. I wake, footsteps, whispering. His shadow shifted, moving slightly toward the dark door. You're imagining it, he said. No, she whispered. I hear breathing. The fire flickered violently. Dust swirled in the golden shafts of light. Shadows crawled along the walls and floor. Her knees pressed together, small fingers trembling. Breathing? He asked, voice low. Yes, she whispered. And crying. His eyes darkened. The room felt suffocating, heavy, alive. The locked door loomed, a dark weight. Mara shivered, hunched against the table, trembling. Crying? Eli's voice was tight. His jaw clenched. Yes, she said, voice small, almost breaking. Someone, trapped. Needs help. Silence followed. Dust drifted slowly through the light. Firelight flickered across both their faces, shadows dancing, stretching toward the dark door. Outside, the snow pressed against the walls, faint scratches of wind. Figures lingered in doorways, blurred, watching silently. Mara's small frame shivered, hunger and fear mingling. She pressed her hands to her knees. The golden light illuminated dust motes, suspended mid-motion, slow. The weight of the room pressed in, heavy and unrelenting. Trapped, he repeated, voice low, measured. Yes, she whispered. I can hear them. Someone trapped in that room. Dust swirled in lazy arcs. Her stomach ached. She hunched slightly, trembling. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. His boots shifted slightly against the floor, quiet. The fire flickered, shadows crawling across the walls, the table, the floor. Her small hands trembled in her lap. Outside, watchers remained in doorways, silent, blurred. The locked door stood, dark, heavy, foreboding. "You should not hear," he said finally. "Some things are meant to stay closed." She swallowed hard, small fingers digging into her knees. I can't. I hear them." His dark eyes softened slightly. "Then you must listen carefully, and quietly." She nodded, trembling. Dust floated in golden light, suspended mid-air, slow arcs. Shadows stretched long, crawling toward the corner where the locked door stood. The air was thick, heavy, tense. Her stomach twisted. Hunger, fear, curiosity coiled together. Outside, snow pressed against the walls, faint scratches of wind. The watchers lingered in doorways, blurred, quiet. Mara's small voice broke the silence. "Why, is someone trapped?" He didn't answer immediately. They did something," he said finally, voice low, measured. "Or, someone did it to them," she pressed. He shook his head slightly, shadowed face unreadable. "Doesn't matter now." She swallowed, eyes wide, small fingers trembling. The fire flickered, shadows dancing, creeping along the walls and floor. Dust motes floated lazily through the light, suspended, slow. Outside, the snow pressed against the walls. The door stayed shut, heavy, silent. "I want to help," she whispered, tiny voice. Eli's dark eyes flicked to her, sharp, piercing. "You cannot," he said flatly. "Why not?" Dust swirled in lazy arcs, golden light illuminating it. "Because some things are not for saving," he said. Mara's stomach twisted. Her small hands dug into her lap. The room felt alive, heavy, oppressive. Shadows crawled across the floor and walls, toward the dark door. The watchers remained outside, blurred, silent. Dust drifted slowly, caught in shafts of golden sunlight. The fire flickered. Mara shivered, small and fragile, knees pressed together. She swallowed hard, hunger and fear mingling. Eli's voice cut through the thick air, low, firm. "Sit. Eat. Wait." She nodded, trembling, fingers gripping the edge of the table. Dust motes floated, suspended in light. Shadows stretched long. The locked door stayed shut, heavy, dark, foreboding. She ate slowly, small bites, trembling. The room pressed close around her, thick with memory and fear. The watchers outside lingered, silent, blurred. Firelight flickered, shadows crawling. Dust drifted lazily, golden in the sunlight. The truce held, fragile, unbroken. She exhaled, trembling, small, alive. The locked door remained, silent, ominous. A knock rattled the door before the sun had fully risen, sharp and unexpected. Mara jumped, small body tense, fingers gripping the edge of the table. Eli's shadow stretched across the floor toward the sound. "Who is it?" he called, voice low, flat. Silence answered. Then another knock, more insistent, echoing in the warm, dust-filled room. Mara's stomach twisted. "Someone," she whispered. "Yes," he said, jaw tight. "Go see." She shook her head. I can't." "Then stay," he said bluntly. Her small fingers dug into her lap, white-knuckled. Dust drifted in lazy arcs, golden sunlight catching each particle, suspended mid-air. The fire flickered, shadows stretching across the walls. Outside, the wind pressed against the walls, snow shifting faintly. Mara's small frame shivered, body tense. Eli moved to the door slowly, boots scraping the floor. The fire flickered against his face, eyes dark, unreadable. He opened it just a crack. A man stood there, tall, coat dusted with snow, hat low, eyes sharp. "Eli," he said, voice gruff. "We need to talk." Mara's breath caught. "Who is he?" she whispered. "A visitor," Eli said softly, then louder, inside. "Now." The man stepped into the warmth, boots clattering softly against wood. He glanced at Mara, eyes dark, calculating. She shrank slightly, pressing her small body against the table. Dust swirled around them, moving in lazy, golden arcs. The fire flickered, casting shadows that seemed alive. The room felt smaller, heavier, thick with tension. "Morning," the man said, voice flat, cautious. "We need information." Eli's jaw tightened. "We talk here," he said bluntly. Mara watched, small and tense, fingers twisting in her lap. The man's eyes flicked toward her, faint interest. "The girl?" he asked, voice low. "Not yours to speak of," Eli said sharply. Mara's stomach twisted, fear pressing through her small frame. I can leave," she whispered. Eli shook his head. "Stay," he said. She hunched slightly, trembling. Dust drifted in the shafts of light, caught in the warm glow, suspended mid-motion. The fire flickered again, shadows crawling along floorboards and walls. The man shifted, eyes narrowing. "I need to know what happened here," he said. "We know the family." Eli's hand tightened at his side. "No," he said flatly. "Not a word." Mara swallowed, tiny hands digging into her lap. The man's gaze flicked to the dark door in the corner, shadowed, ominous. He moved slightly, fingers brushing the frame. Eli's boots scraped the floor, moving closer. "Stay away from that door," he warned. Dust swirled in lazy spirals. Mara's small frame trembled, body pressing against the table. Outside, faint watchers lingered in doorways, blurred, silent. The man's voice dropped, low, threatening. "I will find out." Eli's shadow stretched across the floor toward him, long, sharp. "Not here," Eli said. Mara flinched. The room felt alive, heavy with unspoken danger. Dust motes floated lazily, catching golden sunlight. Shadows stretched and twisted, crawling toward the dark door. Mara swallowed, small body shivering, hunger and fear coiling together. Why are you here?" she whispered. The man glanced at her, cold, brief interest, then back to Eli. "Business," he said. "Not yours." She hunched lower. Eli's voice cut the room, low, measured. "Leave," he said. "Now." The man's jaw clenched. "Not until I get answers." Mara's stomach twisted. The tension pressed down, thick, heavy. Dust drifted in golden light, suspended. Fire flickered, shadows crawling across floorboards and walls. Outside, snow pressed against walls, faint scratches of wind. The dark door dominated the corner, heavy, silent, ominous. Mara hunched slightly, pressing her small body against the table, trembling. "I told you," Eli said, tone sharp, final. "No answers here." The man's hand moved toward his coat. "You'll regret this," he muttered. "Try me," Eli said flatly. The fire flickered violently. Shadows crawled, dust motes drifted, suspended in sunlight. Mara's small frame trembled, gripping the table edge. Outside, faint figures lingered in the snow, blurred, silent, watching. The tension stretched, thick, almost alive. Mara swallowed hard, eyes wide, shivering. The man's jaw tightened. "I will come back," he said, voice low, thread barely contained. Eli's hands clenched at his sides. "And I will be here." Dust drifted lazily, floating in golden light. Shadows stretched across floorboards and walls, creeping toward the dark door. Mara's small frame pressed against the table, trembling. She swallowed hard, tiny body tense. Fire flickered. Dust swirled, suspended, slow. Outside, the wind rattled against the walls. Snow shifted faintly. Figures lingered in doorways, blurred, silent. The man stepped back, boots scraping softly against the wood. He paused at the door, eyes flicking once more toward the dark corner. "This isn't over," he muttered. Eli's jaw tightened. "It's over here," he said flatly. The door shut with a low thud, dust motes drifting in the last shafts of sunlight. Silence fell, heavy, thick. Mara's small body shivered, fingers pressed tight in her lap. The fire flickered, shadows stretching long and slow. Outside, faint watchers lingered, silent, blurred. The dark door dominated the corner, still and heavy. Mara's small voice broke the silence. "Will he come back?" Her eyes were wide, trembling. Eli didn't answer immediately. He exhaled slowly. Yes, he said finally, low, measured. But we'll be ready. She swallowed, small hands twisting in her lap. Dust floated lazily, suspended in golden light. Shadows stretched across floorboards and walls. The fire flickered, shadows crawling, alive. Outside, snow pressed against walls, faint scratches of wind. Figures lingered at doorways, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, trembling. Hunger and fear pressed against her small body. Why me?" she whispered finally. Eli's jaw tightened. Because you survived. She pressed her hands to her knees, trembling. Dust drifted lazily, golden in sunlight. Shadows stretched toward the dark door, long, creeping. The fire flickered, shadows dancing across floorboards and walls. Outside, snow pressed against walls, faint wind scratches. Watchers lingered in doorways, silent, blurred. Mara's small frame shivered, pressing against the table. Eli's dark eyes never left her, steady, unyielding. The room was heavy, thick, tense. She exhaled softly. I'll stay, she whispered. Eli's hands relaxed slightly at his sides. Dust motes drifted lazily through golden shafts of light. Shadows stretched long, crawling toward the dark door. The fire flickered. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers remained, blurred and silent. Mara hunched slightly, trembling, small, fragile. Hunger and fear mixed with cautious trust. The dark door stayed shut, heavy, foreboding. Silence pressed on, thick, unbroken. Dust floated. Shadows crawled. Firelight flickered. Mara ate slowly, small bites, trembling. The truce held, fragile, unbroken. The snow pressed against the cabin walls, cold and relentless, like tiny fists tapping at the wood. Mara's small hands pressed against the windowpane, nose nearly touching the frost. They're out there, she whispered, voice small, trembling. Eli's shadow stretched across the floor, broad, imposing. Who? He asked, low, flat. She swallowed. The watchers, they're moving closer. He exhaled slowly, jaw tight. Let them come, he said finally. Dust drifted lazily in the golden light from the fire, shafts cutting through the room, suspended, slow. Outside, faint figures shifted in the snow, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, small body tense. Her stomach twisted with hunger and fear. I saw something, she whispered, voice shaking. What? He didn't move closer, hands clasped at his sides. Near the well, she said. Footprints. Fresh. Not from them, she added quickly. Eli's dark eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows along the walls. Show me, he said finally. She shivered. I can't. It's too cold. He exhaled, jaw tight. Then describe it. She pressed her hands to her knees. Marks, deep. Dragged. Something heavy. Blood. Her voice cracked. Eli's shadow shifted slightly, moving toward the dark corner, toward the locked door. Dust drifted, golden in sunlight. Fire flickered, shadows crawling. Blood, he asked, voice low, controlled. Yes, she whispered, small. Someone, hurt. His jaw clenched. Who? I don't know, she said, trembling. Not like the others, alive, I think. He shifted closer to the fire, dark eyes sharp, unreadable. Shadows stretched long, crawling toward the dark door in the corner. Dust motes floated lazily, caught in golden light. Mara hunched forward slightly, fingers twisting in her lap. Outside, snow pressed against the walls, faint wind scratching. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Eli's voice dropped, low, dangerous. You shouldn't be outside, he said. I saw, she whispered. I can't unsee. He exhaled slowly. Then you must stay inside, he said finally, flat, firm. Her small frame trembled. Why is it always snowing? she whispered. Because some things don't stop, he said, jaw tight. Dust drifted in lazy arcs. Fire flickered violently, shadows stretching and twisting across walls and floorboards. Outside, figures lingered at the edges of the clearing, blurred, silent. Mara pressed her small hands to her lap, trembling. Hunger and fear mixed with curiosity and dread. She swallowed hard. What happened at the well? Her voice was tiny, trembling. Eli's eyes darkened. Old story, he said finally. Not for you. I need to know, she pressed. No, he said flatly. Silence hung thick in the room. Dust floated lazily in shafts of golden sunlight. Shadows stretched long, creeping toward the dark door. Fire flickered, warm light crawling across floorboards. Outside, snow pressed against the walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, small and fragile, trembling. I heard something moving, she whispered. Eli's jaw tightened. You mean the drag marks? Yes, she said. Something alive. His shadow stretched long across the floor toward the dark door. He exhaled slowly, voice low, controlled. Then stay inside. No curiosity. She swallowed, small hands twisting in her lap. Dust motes floated lazily, golden in sunlight. Fire flickered, shadows crawling. Outside, snow pressed against walls, faint scratches of wind. Watchers lingered, silent, blurred. Mara's stomach twisted again. We should help, she whispered. No, Eli said sharply. We watch. Her small body shrank into the chair. Watch? That's all? Yes, he said flatly. Shadows stretched toward the dark door. Dust drifted in lazy arcs. Fire flickered. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers remained, silent, blurred. Her small fingers dug into her lap. Hunger, fear, tension pressed against her chest. She exhaled softly. Will he survive? Her voice trembled. Eli's dark eyes flicked to her, sharp. If he's lucky, he said finally, low, measured. Dust motes drifted in golden light, suspended mid-motion. Shadows stretched long and crawling. Fire flickered. Outside, the snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched, small and fragile. Her stomach ached. She swallowed hard. I want to help, she whispered, tiny voice. Eli's jaw clenched. You cannot, he said flatly. Why? Because some things cannot be saved. Her small hands twisted in her lap. Dust drifted lazily, golden in sunlight. Shadows stretched, crawling across floorboards and walls. Fire flickered. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers remained, blurred, silent. Mara hunched, trembling, small. The wind rattled the window, scraping against the walls. Mara shivered. I can't stop thinking about him, she whispered. Eli's jaw tightened. Then think quietly, he said. Dust motes floated in lazy arcs. Fire flickered, shadows crawling, stretching toward the dark door. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, silent, blurred. Mara hunched against the table, small, fragile. Hunger and fear mixed with dread and curiosity. Will he come here? She asked finally. Eli's eyes darkened. Not if we are careful. She pressed her small hands to her knees, trembling. Dust drifted lazily in golden shafts of light. Shadows stretched long, crawling toward the dark door. Fire flickered, warm and moving. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched, trembling, small. Hunger and fear pressed against her chest. I should do something, she whispered. Eli shook his head. No. Watch. Learn. Wait. Her small body trembled, hands twisting in her lap. Dust floated in lazy arcs, suspended in sunlight. Fire flickered, shadows crawling across floorboards and walls. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers remained, silent, blurred. Mara hunched, small and fragile. Hunger, fear, and tension pressed against her chest. The fire flickered violently. Eli exhaled slowly. "Stay close," he said finally, low and measured. Mara swallowed hard, pressing her small hands to her lap. Dust drifted lazily in golden light. Shadows stretched long, crawling toward the dark door. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, trembling, small, fragile. Hunger and fear mingled with growing awareness, curiosity, and dread. She exhaled softly. I will stay." Eli's dark eyes softened slightly. Dust motes floated, suspended in golden shafts of light. Shadows stretched, long and slow, creeping toward the dark door. Fire flickered, warm and moving. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, trembling, small. The tension held, fragile, unbroken. The wind cut through the trees, sharp, relentless, pressing against the cabin walls. Mara's small hands clutched the edge of the table, knuckles white. "It's coming," she whispered, voice trembling. Eli's shadow stretched across the floor, broad, dark, silent. "Who?" he asked, low, flat. She swallowed. The men." From the clearing. His jaw tightened. "How many?" She shook her head slightly. I don't know. Too many." Dust floated in lazy arcs through the shafts of golden light from the fire. Shadows stretched, crawling toward the dark corner, toward the locked door. Outside, snow pressed against the walls. Figures lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched, small, tense, stomach twisting. "They're coming closer," she whispered again. Eli's eyes narrowed. "Then we prepare." She flinched. "Prepare, how?" His voice was low, measured. "Watch, wait, defend if needed." Dust motes drifted lazily, suspended in golden light. Shadows stretched across floorboards, walls, creeping toward the dark door. Mara's small hands dug into her lap. Hunger, fear, tension pressed against her chest. Outside, the snow shifted faintly. Figures lingered in the trees, blurred, silent. I can hear them," she said, small voice. "Voices," she added quickly. Eli exhaled slowly, jaw tight. "Voices can lie." She swallowed, trembling. I hear boots, dragging, scraping, whispers." He stepped closer to her, shadow falling over her small frame. "Stay calm," he said flatly. Dust floated, golden in the sunlight, slow, suspended. Fire flickered, shadows crawling. Outside, snow pressed against the walls. Figures lingered, blurred, silent. Mara pressed her small body against the table, trembling. "They're in the trees," she whispered. "Watching." Eli's dark eyes flicked toward the window. "Let them watch," he said. "They'll learn nothing yet." Dust drifted lazily through shafts of golden light. Shadows stretched long, crawling toward the dark door. Mara swallowed hard, fingers twisting in her lap. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Figures lingered, blurred, silent. Hunger and fear pressed against her small body, twisting stomach. I can't stop thinking," she said, tiny voice. "What if they," she swallowed. "What if they come inside?" Eli's jaw clenched. "Then we fight." Fire flickered violently. Dust drifted in lazy arcs, golden in sunlight. Shadows crawled across floorboards, walls, creeping toward the dark door. Mara hunched slightly, small, fragile. Outside, snow pressed against the walls. Figures lingered, blurred, silent. "Fight," she whispered. I don't know how." His dark eyes softened slightly. Then you learn. Dust motes floated, suspended. Fire flickered, shadows crawling. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara swallowed hard, hands pressed to her knees. Hunger, fear, tension pressed against her small frame. They're close, she whispered again. Eli exhaled slowly. Then stay low. Stay quiet. Dust drifted lazily through golden shafts of light. Shadows stretched long, crawling toward the dark door. Fire flickered, shadows dancing across floorboards and walls. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Figures lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched, trembling. Small, fragile, tense. I can hear them breathing, she whispered, tiny voice. Not all of them, Eli said flatly. Some wait. Some watch. Some will come. Dust floated, golden in sunlight, suspended. Shadows stretched toward the dark door. Fire flickered, warm and moving. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara pressed her small hands to her lap, trembling. Hunger, fear, tension coiled tightly. They won't leave me alone, she said finally. I can feel it. Eli's jaw tightened. Then we wait, he said. Dust drifted lazily, golden in shafts of sunlight. Shadow stretched, long and slow, creeping toward the dark door. Fire flickered, shadows dancing across floorboards and walls. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Figures lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, trembling, small. Hunger and fear pressed against her chest. They'll come inside, she whispered. Eli exhaled slowly. Maybe. Maybe not. Dust motes floated in golden light, suspended. Fire flickered, shadows crawling. Shadows stretched toward the dark door. Mara swallowed, tiny fingers twisting in her lap. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. The tension pressed, heavy, thick. I can't stop thinking about them, she said finally, voice small, trembling. Eli's eyes darkened. Then think quietly, he said, flat, firm. Dust drifted lazily in golden light. Shadows stretched, crawling toward the dark door. Fire flickered, shadows dancing across floorboards and walls. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers remained, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, trembling, small. They're so quiet, she whispered. Silent. Waiting. Eli's jaw clenched. Silent is dangerous, he said low. Dust floated lazily through shafts of golden light. Shadows stretched long, crawling toward the dark door. Fire flickered, warm and moving. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara pressed her small hands to her knees, trembling. Hunger and fear mixed with tense awareness. I think they know, she whispered. Know what? He exhaled slowly. That we are ready. Dust drifted lazily, golden in sunlight, suspended. Shadows stretched toward the dark door. Fire flickered, shadows dancing across floorboards and walls. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Figures lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, trembling, small. They're coming, she said finally. Eli's dark eyes flicked toward the window. Then we wait. Watch. Learn. And if they try, dust motes floated, suspended in sunlight. Shadows stretched long, creeping toward the dark door. Fire flickered. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched, trembling. Small, fragile, tense. Hunger and fear pressed against her chest. I will stay, she whispered. Eli's jaw tightened slightly. Dust drifted lazily through shafts of golden light. Shadows stretched, crawling toward the dark door. Fire flickered, shadows dancing. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers remained, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, trembling, small. Hunger, fear, and tension pressed, heavy, unbroken. The wind rattled the shutters, sharp and relentless. Mara pressed her small hands against her cheeks, eyes wide. "They're here," she whispered. Eli's shadow stretched long across the floor, dark and heavy. "Where?" he asked, voice low, flat. She pointed toward the tree-line, trembling. "Out there, in the dark." Dust drifted in lazy arcs in the firelight, suspended, slow. Shadows stretched toward the dark door. Outside, snow pressed against walls, crunching faintly under unseen boots. Mara hunched, small, tense, stomach twisting with fear. "They'll try the windows first," Eli said, voice flat, calm. "They always do." Mara swallowed hard. I'm scared." He exhaled slowly, jaw tight. "Good. Stay sharp." Dust floated lazily through golden shafts of firelight. Shadows crept across walls, crawling toward the dark door. The snow pressed against the cabin walls. Outside, muffled whispers drifted in the wind. Mara pressed her small body against the table, trembling. "They're moving," she whispered, tiny voice. Eli's eyes darkened. "Then we wait." She shivered. "I can hear ropes dragging." "Stay quiet," he said flatly. Fire flickered violently, shadows dancing. Dust motes floated suspended, golden in the light. Outside, snow shifted faintly, crunching under careful steps. Figures lingered in the trees, blurred, silent, watching. Mara's small fingers dug into her lap. Hunger and fear pressed tight against her small body. I think they see the fire," she whispered. Eli's jaw tightened. "They know we're awake," he said. "Good," he added softly. "We want them awake." Dust drifted lazily in shafts of golden light. Shadows stretched long across floorboards and walls, crawling toward the dark door. Fire flickered, warm and moving. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched, small, fragile, trembling. "They're close," she said. Voice tiny, trembling. Eli exhaled slowly. "Then stay low. Don't peek." Dust floated lazily, golden in sunlight, suspended. Shadows stretched, crawling toward the dark door. Fire flickered violently, shadows dancing. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Figures lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, small and fragile. Hunger, fear, tension pressed against her chest. I can hear them breathing," she whispered. Eli's jaw clenched. "Some wait. Some move." Dust drifted lazily, golden in shafts of light. Shadows stretched toward the dark door. Fire flickered. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers remained, blurred, silent. Mara pressed her small hands to her lap, trembling. Hunger and fear pressed tight against her small body. "They won't leave," she whispered. "They're waiting." Eli's dark eyes flicked toward the window. "Good," he said finally. "Let them wait. Let them feel the cold. Let them wonder." Dust motes floated lazily, suspended. Fire flickered, shadows crawling across floorboards and walls. Outside, snow pressed against walls. Watchers lingered, blurred, silent. Mara hunched slightly, small and tense.